Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Medtech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So today on the Medtech Impact Podcast, we are delighted to be joined by Dana McMahon, Chief Compliance Officer with Stryker. Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Hey, well, we are super excited equally to have you on the show because I think when it comes to medical device, everything is governed by compliance. And it can sometimes be a challenging subject to talk about. So we're here to get your perspective and learn more about how Stryker is approaching it. But before we do that, we'd love to set the stage a little bit and just tell us what is compliance and ultimately why should we care?
So the way I think about compliance, and we talk about compliance at Stryker, is that every compliance risk is a business risk first. And so if there's something that's happening from a compliance perspective that we're concerned about, how we're interacting with healthcare professionals, or how we're managing our contracting, or how we're managing our field assets, whatever it is, all of those things, if they go wrong from a compliance perspective, are actually going to impact the business results. And that's really the way that we've built very strong partnership with our commercial partners across sales and marketing and operations.
Amazing. And you've been with Stryker for how long now?
I've been with Stryker for about 7 years, and I've been in this role as the Chief Compliance Officer for a little over 3 years. And it's actually my first role in compliance, but I've worked with compliance for a long time as a legal partner.
So pretty well versed with the goings on at Stryker and clearly how that ties into the business risks that you mentioned. Where do you get started? Because again, this is such a broad topic. And so when you're thinking about how this informs strategy, how this informs culture, how do you get started on such a big topic like this?
That's such a great question. And when I came into this role, I really took a step back and thought about how do we build a value-driving function? Because compliance can be such a proactive value-driving function. And it's about deeply understanding the business, really integrating within the business so compliance isn't sitting on the side as a silo. And I think about it in terms of the people, the work, and the culture, because you need really all three of those to be working as they should for compliance also to be working. So on the people, it's really having this high-performing team that thinks of themselves as partners to the business and really there to help enable the business results. And then it's about the work, which can't just be one size fits all. It can't be a check the box compliance program. It really has to be tailored to the specific risks faced by that business unit or that division or that country. And then it has to be about the culture. So really that culture of ethics and integrity and helping to support this culture where employees feel comfortable speaking up, but also sharing innovative ideas and all of those things. So really it's about all of those three things, but none of that works without first understanding what the business is trying to achieve, what's their strategy, what's their 3 to 5 year plan, so that we can be looking up, out, and around the corner to help them get there by knowing what might get in the way.
Nice. Yeah, Dana, it's interesting, right? Because like compliance, it's so important that you're involved in every part of the business. And at the same time, sometimes it can be seen as maybe the fun police, right? It's like, how do you balance the fun police element with like, hey, this is really important because we're talking about people's lives here, right? And how do you get yourself involved and get buy-in from, each department across the organization?
Yeah, I think there was a point where compliance at Stryker, for example, and probably at a lot of other companies, was seen, in the healthcare space as the meal police. So the meals with healthcare professionals, obviously, those are helpful to having that business interaction. And so, they happen and they take place. They have to happen for the right reasons. But we were very much seen as, are you sticking to the meal limits? Why are you having the meals? We've really gotten away from that by digging in and understanding, okay, it's beyond the meals. It's what's going to potentially be disruptive to your business strategy and where you're going. And by doing a compliance risk assessment and we do it every year, where we're looking at what's happening externally to Stryker, so in the industry, where's the government focused, and not just in the US, but around the world. what's happening within the business. Is it a new connected technology strategy? Is it an acquisition strategy? So what's happening within the business that are going to raise various compliance concerns? And how do we marry those things to say, okay, these are really the big prioritized risks we want to focus on. We can't focus on everything, but we're going to focus on those things that could potentially be disruptive to your strategy. So I know that's kind of vague, and I can give some examples there, but that's basically how we try to do it.
Yeah, no, that all, I guess, makes perfect sense. I think about compliance, and I think about, many of the problems that compliance can solve for a business. And, on our podcast here, oftentimes we're talking about the problems that companies are trying to solve with their technologies. What are some of the big problems that compliance is solving, throughout medical device manufacturers in the industry?
Yeah, I think you hit on one of them. One of the big ones is the privacy. So we have a privacy program that stands on its own. It does report up into me as the chief compliance officer, but it's also a compliance risk. So how are we making sure that we're adhering to various regulations, and it's becoming more highly regulated? But the bigger concern, I think, for us as a very innovative technology company is giving assurances to our customers that we're meeting their expectations around privacy and security of their data. And that data becomes increasingly important as we partner with healthcare organizations and health systems and what have you. And so, it's when we're selling our products, being able to give those assurances, because we've thought about privacy by design, we've built the privacy requirements into the actual technology, and then we have processes to ensure that we're meeting those expectations. That's one piece of it. Another piece of it is, as compliance, we can also be sort of this connective tissue across the organization. So we know that for future research and development, to continue to innovate and bring those great technologies to patients, we're going to need patient data. We're going to need data sources. And so we have sales reps who are focused on selling today. We have R&D folks who are focused on, gaining data for the future. And so how do we be that connective tissue to say, hey, when you're negotiating these sales contracts, it's really important to think about preserving those data rights so that we can use it for, to bring even better technology to our customers in the future. So that's one of the ways that we're constantly partnering and thinking sort of about the future.
I'm so intrigued because, to your point, Dana, you're covering so much, not just the privacy aspect, which clearly is everything in terms of medical device, but all through, as Kyle mentioned, that manufacturing process and taking these things to market. Like, how do you go beyond having just a big list of do's and don'ts? Like, do you have some sort of visual tools that help you manage and explain this and engage your workforce?
We do, and we're getting better there. So technology is definitely a hot topic within compliance, because we want to make use of the data that we do have. So, and that happens in so many different ways. So first of all, we have compliance officers literally around the world who are serving their businesses. We also have a compliance team that focuses on our manufacturing and distribution organization, because some compliance issues can come up there too. Quality, are we cutting corners because of pressure to produce more quickly? All of those things. So sort of that tone from the top becomes really important in the manufacturing space as well. So we have folks around the world who are working on their mitigation strategies, their activities to reduce risk. And a lot of those compliance officers are facing similar issues. So you may have a compliance officer in Turkey who's addressing the same issue as a compliance officer who sits in the US who's working for sports medicine. And so now we're building sort of this platform, because it was all very manual and done through Excel, where compliance officers can be looking and partnering on addressing similar risks, and so that we're not constantly reinventing the wheel. So for us, that's been super innovative, because we've been sharing best practices and telling the stories and doing all those things we can do in the formats when we have them. But now we have this sort of electronic capability to be looking through the activities, the best practices, what's worked, the wins, and either be scaling them and sort of lifting and shifting them to implement them elsewhere, or to be partnering with them on a go forward basis. So it's been tricky, and it's a challenge, but we're trying to make the best of the tools and the solutions that we've already built.
And you said before, like you obviously have this annual assessment and you're thinking about, stratification of risk. How do you then come together? Do you have this platform, which sounds incredible, the fact that you have this forum, this way of engaging, but do you then have like a series of international get-togethers or regional get-togethers? How are the team then communicating beyond the platform on a sort of annual basis or month-to-month basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the platform is one that we're currently in the process of building. So it's not quite there yet, but yes, we try to shrink the department as much as possible. So we have quarterly calls that everyone's on. We have we just had a global meeting where the entire team was in Madrid together. And so that time together is so invaluable. Of course, that can't happen every year because of funding and logistics and other things. But we try to do as much as we can virtually, in person, where people are there, and we're telling the stories and we're sharing the best of the best, and we're communicating. I also do a monthly office hour where anyone on my team, or again, around the globe, can come and hear what's happening. And that's another way of just sharing information. And then I've stood up this Styker team, which is really focused on best practice sharing. So there's a member of the team from our commercial divisions, compliance team, from our regional compliance team, from our GQO compliance team, the one I talked about that deals with manufacturing and supply chain. And again, those are to kind of really pull together the best practices and then share them back out. When we do our risk assessment, we do that at the local level. So per business unit and division and country, that then rolls up to the divisions across the board and the regions across the board. And then that rolls up again to a global level so that we have line of sight, because I share that also with our executive team and the board, to our top risks globally. And then at the local level, the compliance officers can be talking, because their businesses are very interested in what's most impactful for them locally, but also how does that compare to the global risks that we have line of sight to. And then some things, if a global risk is how we deal with field assets, because of how consistent that risk is across Medtech, that's one where we would have a global training and guidance and one-pagers and supporting tools. So that's an example of something we would address sort of globally. And then there's lots of examples that may be more local. And so you create a tool that you can use locally, but then we look around the globe to say, okay, where else would that tool be effective?
You mentioned videos before, Dana, too, to educate your team internally.
Yes. Yes,
Now,
we have started using videos, and that can be really fun. And I want to give a call out to John Redinger. We have a great guy on the team who sits within the training function, and he has such an amazing voice. And so a lot of the videos that we used to outsource, and also the voiceovers for longer trainings, he's been doing them in-house, and he creates these great 2-minute videos. Maybe there's been, a settlement in the medtech space, and we want to highlight and talk about, what it means to Stryker. So we can create those quick videos in-house and turn them around really quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm always like a huge fan about creating fun and making things fun and engaging. Maybe it's the marketing in me, but videos seem to be obviously a big hit. And, just wondering, right? Because you think about the evolution of educational videos here. And I think one industry that stood out so well is the flying industry. Okay, you jump on a plane and you're sitting down, they take
Yeah.
Now they don't even do, I think it might be Delta, right? But like they don't typically have the people that stand up and do the whole thing. Sometimes they'll try to put on a show, but they actually make a video, and a lot of times these videos are using humor, right? They're being super creative. Now again, like we're talking like, situations where they're telling us how to use, oxygen or a life vest, and we're talking life and death. So I think about medical device and compliance, right? And I think about taking these really serious conversations or topics of discussion and creating fun. How do you create fun from that aspect? Obviously you've got that guy with the engaging voice there. Do you ever, try to, again, like you want to welcome people into compliance, right? You want to make them want to get involved. You want to make them really keep it top of mind. Are you leveraging any kind of fun aspects? What's your
Absolutely.
take on that too, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I love to have fun. My team likes to have fun. I mean, listen, it's serious, but at the end of the day, I think you're right. To get the engagement, you also have to make it fun. And also like it's fun for us. It's we want to make it light too. So one thing I'll point to is about a year and a half ago, we refreshed our code of conduct. It had been very much, it was a sort of a 2-page document that was like, you must do this, you must do that, this is required. And we wanted to make it more inviting. So we rewrote it. Again, it's very principles based. It's very inviting. It talks about the why behind, our standards and our policies. And we used pictures of actual Stryker people. So that wasn't intuitive. And folks were like, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, I really want to look and feel like Stryker. But then we also had this whole campaign around it, which our CEO, Kevin Lobo, said, wow, this is like a product launch. And in fact, we won the Launch Implementation of the Year award, which is the first for any function, let alone compliance. It's always marketing, right? So that was really fun, but we made it super fun. Like we had part of the campaign was we had these posters and we put some in the bathrooms. They said like, don't flush your ethics down the toilet. We had another one inside the stall that said, while you're doing your business, we're doing ours, and it had like some pointers from the code of conduct. We had some over the mirrors in the bathrooms that said like, this person does what's right. But it was a whole fun campaign. That was just one aspect of it. But again, it was like, okay, it doesn't have to be so serious. And people really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love hearing that. And I think now going back to the serious side, it's really cool to see how much Stryker has grown and their stock has thrived over the last 5 years. And I think it's probably a large testament to the compliance team as well. That plays a massive role. And I was wondering if you could share how compliance has helped Stryker generate revenue throughout their growth over the past few years?
Right. That's a great question. I will say we have helped generate growth and we've been able to demonstrate that, but it's also about protecting the revenue. So that I think is even just a bigger driver. So if you think about Stryker, the growth has been amazing. Our financial results have been amazing. And we want to be able to protect what we've earned, right? And so, some of these, when you think about what's happening in the industry, from a reputational perspective, less so than a financial perspective, but in terms of fines, but the reputational impact that a company can have with one of these things. If you look at the stock of Boeing or some of these others that have had a big hit, it can really be quite compelling.
Incredible. I mean, I love the fact that fun element and how well you've done. So first and foremost, congrats, because you've actually gone out and achieved something which nobody else has done before. And I think introducing that fun aspect to compliance and being rewarded quite rightly for that. And I love the fact that you're getting this placement in the restrooms. You're getting people to engage in different forums, we might call that. I did want to bring it back to the fun aspect of Madrid. It was interesting because you said that sometimes not always an easy budget item, but clearly engaging with your teams and getting them together is so critical, particularly when you are a global organization and we're living in this post-pandemic world where a lot of things are virtual. So what's that like, that conversation where you say, we do need to get people together because there is value to that, and clearly look at, again, the outcomes of getting people together and creating a winning strategy.
Yeah. This was actually, it wasn't a hard sell because it was actually the first time the entire global compliance and privacy organization was together in person. So I came into this role in January 2021, and that was the first time we had a consolidated global compliance and privacy function, actually. And so we've been mostly working virtually. We have had get-togethers with different, smaller teams or what have you, but this was the first time it was really that global meeting. And there were so many like business drivers for it. And so it wasn't too hard to get the okay, although again, this isn't something that's gonna be able to happen every year. But what I was so focused on, and the planning team was so focused on, was continuing to bring that intense focus to the frontline employees, marketing, sales. And we did that through so many different ways. We have compliance officers who are obviously working with those folks all the time, but then we have lots of, we call them enabling functions, auditing and monitoring, analytics, training, communications, that aren't engaging so much all the time with our frontline employees. So really bringing that intense experience. So you remember, this is why I'm here. I'm here because we're having an impact on our business and on patients. So we did a product fair where we had local marketeers from Spain bring in the products, and we got to use them and touch them and, really get to understand them. We had a session where we heard from one of our folks in R&D who's really working on unbelievable life-changing technology. That was amazing. That was so inspirational. We had panels with business leaders, both global business leaders and local business leaders, who talked about their connection and partnership with compliance. And one of them said something that I'll remember always, which was, you're all in the business, but you happen to be in compliance. And I think the same way, the other way, like, you guys are maybe not sitting in the compliance department if you're out in the business, but you all are responsible for compliance. And that was such a strong message. And then we heard directly from a patient. We had a patient there. I really wanted us to have a patient and the physician to really get into this patient's story and what happened and how their life was changed by Stryker's products. But hearing about it, both from the healthcare professional who treated the patient, so his surgeon, and the surgeon's Stryker rep, who really got them the product, helped them, navigate the situation. And that was, again, so impactful. And one last thing I'll just talk about is, we also spoke about, I had been in South Africa and met with one of the surgeons there, who actually also founded an organization where they're providing surgery, a couple of hundred a year to patients who need the surgery, who would otherwise be waiting several years if they got the surgery at all. We donate product to that organization, as we do to other organizations, but there have to be compliant ways of doing it. So we have processes, in place to enable us to do that. And so that was one where I wanted to bring that story alive, because compliance is right in the center of that. Without the compliance support and partnership, we wouldn't be able to have that kind of an impact on patient lives. So just doing all of those things that really generated that understanding of, like, what we do has an impact both on Stryker's performance and on patients. And then there was so many fun aspects. We had this Decades dance party. Literally, we had 135 people on the dance floor for like 4 hours. We had such a great time. It was awesome.
Amazing. Well, Kevin, if you're listening in, you need to keep investing in this event, because look at the results. This is it. Your team working as one like dynamic outfit who are achieving compliance across the organization. And I love a couple of things you mentioned, about the people and the culture, but again, about patients, because this is what it's all about. It's about bringing functional, efficient, but clearly safe products to patients. And the compliance element is critical to that. So kudos to you guys for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Kyle, I do wonder now, as we kind of look to turn the corner, like, investing in teams. It's something, again, we've spoken a little bit about the winning aspects of creating a great culture, but, it makes me think about the sort of advice that you'd have for somebody else who's working in this space.
It's a really good point, Richard. And it's something, again, that we always try to, deliver this value to our listeners. And when it comes to compliance, Dana, and the teams that you're building, and just how you go about doing what you do day in and day out, what are maybe a few pieces of advice that you could share to other organizations that are really trying to, build a stronger compliance team and just, be better every day, and obviously balance, right, the serious aspects of compliance, the necessary parts of compliance, as well as the fun side of compliance, right, and making it fun?
Sure. There's a few things I would say. First of all, it's all about the talent. I said before, we really focus on the people, the work, and the ethical culture, and it starts with the people. It's really about the talent. So we put in place this, something we call the knowledge building series, where a few times a year we have these global offerings, and we do it in a few different time zones so everyone can make it. And it might be about a specific topic. It might be about maybe a recent settlement and lessons learned, and understanding the root cause. It might be about, we do a lot of influencing, right? So it might be about influence mapping. It might be something we now have started to add in health and wellness. So I'm partnering with this amazing woman. Her name is Holly Reilinger, and she comes in. She has an organization called Lifted, and actually we have one coming up where she does a workout for us globally, and she talks to us about meditation or breathing or, healthy eating, getting more protein. So that's, really important to me because we're not just here. Like it's really, you bring your whole person to work. So that's super important to me. So really focusing on the development of our folks, thinking about their health and wellness. And then I think in terms of how we think about our partnership, it's having that frontline obsession, being so super interested in the business, really curious about the business, having that partnership mindset, really being focused on those frontline employees. That's not only what's going to have the most impact on the organization, but what's going to give the most back to us as compliance professionals, because we can really see that we're having that impact on our own organization, and it's an organization we care about and whose mission we very much believe in. So those are the things I would sort of say, is making sure that you're connecting the dots very clearly between someone's role that they may think of as a back office role and what we're doing at the very front of the tip of the spear, I would say, in terms of our business. And then really investing in the development of our skills and capabilities, particularly in terms of what we're going to need, not just today, but in 3 to 5 years.
Awesome. Super creative and just really great, actionable advice and feedback. I think a lot of folks out there can certainly leverage. So let's talk as we, finish up our episode today. We'd love to talk a little bit more about you, right? And outside of compliance. And, when we were talking before the show, you mentioned that you were the president of the Stryker Women's Network. Please tell us a little bit about the Women's Network and what exactly that means.
Yeah, sure. So at Stryker, we have employee resource groups and, focused on a number of different areas. The one I'm leading is called Stryker Women's Network, and it's really about advancing women at Stryker, and through networking and development, mentoring, different things and different programming. So I'm super excited, and I belong to a number of the ERGs, but I was super excited to be asked to lead this one, which is great because, what I think about is, as a Stryker leader, I'm responsible, as are all of our leaders, for really contributing to that workplace where people feel safe being themselves, bringing their best selves to work. And there's that connection to compliance there, because that really supports a culture where employees will feel comfortable speaking up, sharing innovative ideas, and raising concerns. So, contributing to a culture that promotes innovation and growth, while at the same time ethics and integrity is something I really believe in. So super excited to serve as the global president for Stryker Women's Network. And I get around the world in terms of my work-related travel, and it's just another opportunity to connect with people. So we call it SWIN, doing SWIN events, as I'm also just traveling for work, is just an awesome way to connect with people, listen to what they're thinking about, talk about my experiences in terms of, mistakes I've made and opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of. So just something super fun, but also meaningful.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like when it comes to being a leader at an organization, being involved in not just that day-to-day work, but really showing that you care and that you want to put your people first, I think means the world. And that's what probably encourages your team to, really want to make the extra effort and do their part in compliance. So it brings everything full circle there, Dana, and just great to hear.
It does sound like an amazing initiative. I'm just wondering now, like for anyone who wants to get involved in the network, do they reach out to you? How do people sort of take part in this?
Yeah, there's lots of information on our Connect site. Anyone can join. Not just women. We have lots of men who are part of Stryker, and male allyship and allyship in general is super important across all of our employee resource groups. So easy to get involved if you just search on Connect. There's always information about our employee resource groups there.
Fantastic. Well, this has been incredible. We've learned so much about compliance, but I think more importantly, we've learned how you're making this fun and how you're making it engaging and how you're actually getting the culture across Stryker, which is leading to winning results.
I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, another huge thank you to Dana McMahon, Chief Compliance Officer at Stryker. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.